In a lumpy week around the world for the AstraZeneca jab, the Prime Minister gets his first dose. A double thumbs up at the hospital where COVID nearly cost him his life. He urges everyone to get it when they can.
Everybody, when you do get your notification to go for a jab, please go and get it. It is the best thing for you, best thing for your family and for everybody else.
Some European countries today restarted using the vaccine, but it's too late to stop new lockdowns. With talk of a third wave on the continent, what would that mean for the UK? Also on News at 10 tonight.
Do you want to tell me why you've been sending money to Syria?
The money man who claims he can help smuggle former Islamic State fighters' families out of Syrian detention camps. The shrinking British Army. News at 10 learns troops will be cut by 10,000.
What will be announced on Monday is a military that will be more specialised, better equipped and much better connected than before. But it will also be smaller.
Nothing more than a misstep. The White House says President Biden is 100% fine as he falls boarding Air Force One. And
we've been trying different types of bread and we've found that white bread is the best.
Cleaning without chemicals, why skimmed milk and a slice of white could work wonders on your floors and walls.
This is ITV News at 10 with Nina Hossain.
Good evening. The week that saw the UK's first significant problems with the vaccination programme has ended with a new record being set. It was announced today that more than 660,000 people were jabbed yesterday, a new high. Tonight, the Prime Minister joined them. He was given the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, saying he can't recommend it too highly. That recommendation more important than ever after days of bad press for the British vaccine, which saw suspensions around the world over safety concerns. Today, France and Germany began using it again, and they really need it right now. Continental Europe is braced for a third wave of infections, something which could have ramifications here when our borders reopen. For now, though, the signs remain mostly positive.
They say a picture speaks 1,000 words. If there is any truth in that adage, the message here is loud and clear. The Prime Minister got the AstraZeneca vaccine tonight, hoping to shore up confidence in it.
I had a wonderful nurse called Lily and she said, "You're going to feel a shock." I literally did not feel a thing. I cannot recommend it too highly. Everybody, when you do get your notification to go for a jab, please go and get it. It is the best thing for you, best thing for your family and for everybody else.
He wasn't the only Prime Minister to get it today.
No marvel.
France's PM was also on a PR mission to get his country behind it after it was deemed safe. As Paris enters another lockdown, that couldn't be more important. Germany, Italy and Spain also resumed the AstraZeneca jab just as cases rise across much of Europe. The UK is now on high alert as government scientists warn a third wave there could be weeks away here. Others agree the situation is fragile.
The virus is most dangerous to the elderly, but it's not risk-free to the young. So if we infect very large numbers of young people, there will be deaths. So between now and when the vaccines reach the full population, I think we have to be careful about how we open up to ensure that we don't get a large third wave.
Despite cases in England still going down, ONS data suggests there are some areas where rates are increasing, like the East Midlands. In Wales, the reduction has slowed. In Northern Ireland, there's been a levelling off of infections. And in Scotland, where schools opened first, cases have increased slightly. It's too early to say whether schools reopening in England are causing an upsurge. This one in Solihull has so far been lucky, but the situation can change quickly.
Geographically within this area, we've seen two spikes recently and two primary schools have closed this week. Within the school itself, the rates that we've had have been quite minimal. certainly in the single figures, which we're pleased about, but also cautious about as well.
Caution is perhaps how we must all approach the next few weeks. Europe's infection rate is making an already delicate situation here more precarious. The vaccine rollout then can't happen quickly enough.
Yeah, we need to talk more about Europe, don't we? Despite the vaccination success here, how wary do we have to be about a potential of a third wave on the continent?
I think we have to be really wary. It is absolutely possible. This warning came from a really senior government advisor who made it very clear we are at a very fragile point. Yes, cases have come down really sharply. Deaths are also down significantly, but it wouldn't take very much for that to change. As you saw in my report, there are areas in England where the infection rate is increasing. In Scotland, it is also increasing. And yes, the vaccination programme is doing brilliantly, but there are still 6 million people in that first priority group who are still not vaccinated. 21 million adults under the age of 50 still not protected. And the scientists said in my report, some of those could still get seriously ill and die. And to give you some sort of idea, in the UK, around 14,000 people under 50 were hospitalised, around 400 died. So any third wave here could still be really serious. And the rise in Europe is coming just at a time in the UK where we're beginning to ease lockdown, where we're beginning to open up. And that is when testing and tracing and isolating becomes really important again. So I think we should all be really prepared. And as the government advisor said, be really cautious.
Yeah, not long now till March the 29th. Emily Morgan, thank you. Moving on now, and in the northeast of Syria lie sprawling detention camps. Among their inhabitants, former fighters of the so-called Islamic State group and the wives and children of extremists. Most would rather be anywhere else in the world and are willing to pay huge sums to be smuggled out to return to the countries from where they came. Over recent months, Rohit and his team have been investigating how the smugglers operate, tracking down a man believed to be involved in one such operation based in East London.
The detention camps in northeast Syria are vast. Endless, too, are the attempts to escape them. Kurdish security forces try to keep the women and children from leaving. But side by side live those who came to reject IS and those who still mourn it. And almost all want to leave. ITV News has learned tonight of British women who've been successfully smuggled out, including at least one who's made it back to the UK and is known to the authorities. It's thought that only a few dozen remain in the camps, including several who've been stripped of their British citizenship. Salma Helani from Manchester spoke to us about the smugglers last year from custody in Syria.
Most of them, they go back to their country, you know. At the end of the day, everybody wants to go back home.
She and her twin sister Zara tried to use a smuggler to get out. She described to us their foiled plan.
A number was given and it was clear that it was helping injured people out. So we thought, okay, we went to a certain point, there was a ladder, and I went there and I climbed up, and then they captured 4 and the rest they ran away.
But since our conversation 7 months ago, ITV News has been trying to work out how it works. The trail leads us from Syria to our own doorstep and to his. Moin all, I'm from ITV News. Over several months, we observed conversations discussing smuggling methods on the messaging app Telegram. We were invited to speak to one woman who wanted to leave her camp. Almost immediately, she asked for cash to escape.
You can help me with money. We are trying for our freedom. It cost a lot. Thousands and thousands of dollars.
She claimed she was in Al-Hol camp. Then she offered to put us in touch with someone else who could help us to transfer money. She gave him our details. And 9 minutes later, we got a call, then a text. But it was from a British number.
Some sister gave me your number.
Whoever was on the other end didn't realise they were speaking to ITV News. He asked us to send funds, saying we could bank transfer him the money or pay cash. But his preference was for us to use the digital currency Bitcoin because he said there's no trace. Minutes later, the woman contacted us again, echoing his request, urging us to send money through Bitcoin. 2 days later, the self-styled money man got back in touch to make a moral case to try to convince us to send money.
You need to ask yourself, if it was your daughter, sister or mother, would you hesitate to send?
He started to give away more details about himself and the amount of money he claims to have sent.
I have sent thousands over the last 6 months. They have someone in Turkey who converts Bitcoin straight into paper currency, and then they send a person to Syria.
Sending money into the Syrian camps would break terror laws. But who was the man talking to us over Telegram, offering to transfer the money, boasting about how much he'd already raised? We traced the phone to a man named Moinor. He runs a business selling phone handsets in East London, where we found him earlier this week. Moinor, I'm from ITV News. Do you want to tell me why you've been sending money to Syria? Moinor, we've got the proof. You told us you sent thousands of pounds to Syria. Nothing to say, Moinor. And this is what often happens next. Trucks used to smuggle people out. When soldiers stopped this one in September, as the sound of the engine dimmed, children could be heard crying. Many try to escape but fail. But try they will, because hundreds of women in the camps believe the option of being brought back home willingly appears to be vanishing. Rohit Katru, News at 10.
The security threats facing the UK are many in number and constantly evolving. Keen to keep pace with our adversaries, the government is setting out plans for an army it hopes will be fit for the future. That means more high-tech equipment like drones, but fewer troops, about 10,000 fewer in fact. Despite being involved in regular conflict, troop numbers have fallen over the decades, from 163,000 at the time of the Falklands War and 147,000 for the First Gulf War to 82,000 today. But News at 10 has learnt an announcement on Monday will see that number cut to 72,500. Today we got a glimpse of what will replace them.
There are some things we will always need the armed forces to do.
Clear.
Putting themselves at risk to confront an enemy. But on Monday, the Defence Secretary will announce significant changes to the forces, which he says will be based on potential threats, not military sentiment.
I'm making changes to the armed forces. People can disagree with those changes, but they are driven by the lessons we're seeing on the battlefield.
But you are reducing numbers, aren't you?
Well, we'll see what I've decided on Monday in the detail.
But I mean, the numbers are going to drop, are they? You don't need so many people.
Well, what I can tell you is there will be more of some people. So there will be up arrows as well as down arrows.
There will also be huge amounts of new kit. Drones that deliver equipment, drones that stream video or fire weapons, even drones that attack other drones, and all of it connected to troops on the ground.
So what I can see there is that there's other members of my team in close proximity and that they're all okay. It's light years ahead of anything we've had before, and the difference is life-changing really. On a battlefield, I would say it would be it'd be almost dangerous to go out without these now.
But there will also be an overall reduction in numbers. What will be announced on Monday is a military that will be more specialised, better equipped and much better connected than before. But it will also be smaller. The army in particular is expected to shrink from 82,000 to around 72,500 personnel. And some feel that that's getting worryingly low.
For every operation you put into the field, you've obviously got to think about reinforcing it, replacing equipments and people and so on. So my concern is we will fall below the critical mass of being able to put a serious armoured division war-fighting capability into the field.
But the professional head of the forces says numbers are not the key requirement.
So often in the past we focused on size and shape,
What I think we need to be focusing on for the future is much more about the lethality of the force, the resilience of the force, and its relevance.
And staying relevant is getting harder as states explore new ways to undermine one another, potentially without a shot being fired. Carl Dinnan, News at 10 at Bovington Camp in Dorset.
There were new allegations of the criminal justice system failing women today after an off-duty police officer who drunkenly attacked a woman as she walked home was spared jail. PC Oliver Banfield was instead given a 14-week curfew. He's been suspended by West Midlands Police and faces a gross misconduct investigation over the attack last July. The MP Harriet Harman said it was proof the system fails women and protects men. The victim, Emma Homer, said when she found out her attacker was a police officer, it shook her belief system to its core.
I'm okay, but I'm not okay. It's just, I've never suffered with anxiety before. Never really understood it, to be honest. But until now, something like this, it just, it's messed with me quite a bit.
Next week is set to be a pivotal one for the future of Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and the independence cause she has fought so hard for during her career. She said today she stands by every word of evidence she gave to the Alex Salmond inquiry, but leaked findings suggest the committee doesn't believe her. Their report, and another due next week, will state whether Miss Sturgeon misled Parliament. If they don't trigger her resignation, the Scottish Tories say they will force a vote of no confidence.
I was perhaps trying to, how would I best put this, let a long-standing friend and colleague down gently, and maybe I did it too gently.
It's in this evidence that the Holyrood inquiry believes Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament.
I was clear, and certainly intended to be clear.
When her former mentor Alex Salmond first confided the Scottish Government was investigating him for allegations of sexual misconduct, he says she promised to intervene. Nicola Sturgeon says she did no such thing. But 5 against 4, the inquiry voted by majority. They do not believe Scotland's First Minister. The full report is due on Tuesday, and government ministers won't discuss this leak.
If our First Minister has misled Parliament, what faith can the people of Scotland have in our democratic institutions?
I am not going to comment on unpublished reports or unattributed briefings on anything, actually.
We have to have trust in the messaging we're getting from your government every day on this, and we're being told potentially that we have a First Minister who misled Parliament, a Parliament of the people.
And the key word there that you used was potentially.
A statement for Nicola Sturgeon says she stands by every word of her evidence.
That I will tell the truth.
The Scottish Conservatives have now given the First Minister until Tuesday to resign, or they'll push a vote of no confidence to remove her.
And we believe that for somebody who didn't just approve the ministerial code, but wrote her name on it, put her picture on it, and said that she would abide by the letter and the spirit of the code, we think the consequences should be resignation.
SNP members of the inquiry have released a statement accusing fellow committee members of prejudged assertions based on political party loyalties.
That accusation calls into question the very processes of our Parliament, calls into question the very principles of our democracy around accountability and transparency, and that accusation calls into question every committee inquiry we've ever had.
This Holyrood inquiry doesn't decide if Nicola Sturgeon broke ministerial code or not. That's judged by a separate, independent inquiry currently being led by Irish barrister James Hamilton. If he says Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament knowingly, that's a resignation matter. If he says she did so unknowingly, well, her supporters will argue she can stay on, her opponents will say she must go. That Hamilton report is expected on Monday, when the fate of Nicola Sturgeon will lie in the hands of one man proving one word: knowingly. Peter Smith, News at 10, Edinburgh.
To the United States now, where President Biden has taken a very public tumble. The 78-year-old fell 3 times as he climbed the steps to Air Force One en route to Atlanta, prompting questions about his health. We can speak now to our US correspondent Emma Murphy in Washington. Emma, every misstep, literal or otherwise, will be seized upon by his opponents.
Yes, and this was the last sort of image that the team around President Biden would want the world to see. Because he'd left the White House, he was heading to Atlanta to meet with members of the Asian American community and also to speak about vaccines. And he was at Joint Base Andrews, attempting to get on board Air Force One. He started to make his way up the steps. He seemed to be fine. It was very windy. And then his left foot seemed to slip as he took it to the step. He fell forward, he tried to steady himself and then went again. And then a third time when he seemed to really fall very close to being face down on the steps, he did manage to get back up and dust himself off, and when he got to the top of the steps, turned around, saluted and went on board. And immediately his press team were tweeting and saying that this was absolutely fine, there was no problem, it was just a very simple slip. But it's built that narrative that's been growing here for some weeks, that America's oldest president is very frail and not really fit to do the job. That is what his opponents would want you to believe. It will also really add to the pressure on him, however, in the days ahead. He has his first press conference on Thursday, and he will need to put in a really strong performance to stop further talk about his frailty dominating the headlines.
All right. Emma Murphy, thank you very much. Thank you. Back here, the Queen's birthday parade, Trooping the Colour, has been cancelled for the second year in a row because of the pandemic. Buckingham Palace are considering plans for an alternative parade at Windsor Castle, as happened last year. The news came as the Queen thanked volunteers who have helped out during the pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear what you've been doing. I think it's wonderful work. And I do thank everybody and all the others too who have been volunteering. It's been a great help over these very difficult years.
We've heard much recently about footballers being racially abused online. Well, now a Rangers player has said he's been subjected to it on the pitch. A member of the Slavia Prague team is alleged to have made a racist comment to the midfielder Glenn Kamara last night. UEFA will investigate what happened, while Rangers have demanded tough action.
The final moments of Rangers' Europa League journey last night, now at the centre of a race row. 2-0 down and with defeat almost certain. This is the moment Rangers' Glenn Kamara says he was racially abused by Slavia Prague's Andre Kudela.
Well, it's continued between Kudela and Kamara, and the Rangers players not happy at all with Andre Kudela.
Kudela covers his mouth while appearing to say something to Kamara. It prompts a furious reaction from the Scottish side.
Goldson is absolutely furious.
Rangers boss Stephen Gerrard said he was angry and upset when Kamara told him what was said.
I 100% believe him, what he's saying in terms of the accusation. Other players around it heard it. So I will stand toe-to-toe with Glenn Kamara, and I will deal with this however Glenn Kamara wants to deal with it.
As Slavia Prague's players left their hotel this morning, the scars from one dangerous tackle were clear as the questions over allegations of racism facing Andre Kudela continued.
Andre Kudela, how do you respond to the claim you racially abused Glenn Kamara? Are you a racist? What did you say to him?
Slavia Prague deny the allegations. Separately, Rangers also say several players were racially abused on social media after the match. UEFA has now launched an investigation into what happened on the pitch. Neil Connery, News at 10.
Well, if those allegations show sport's ugly side, the antidote has been on display at this week's Cheltenham Festival through the performances of Rachel Blackmore. Her historic victory in the champion hurdle on Tuesday sparked a winning streak, which culminated in her riding into the record books again today as she became the first woman to claim the title of the festival's top jockey.
Aflutar coming for another crack at the leader.
Second at the final fence, and after the week she's enjoyed, Rachel Blackmore momentarily looks set for another piece of racing history.
Aflutar is trying hard. Time is running out.
Wasn't to be. Jack Kennedy and Manello Indo holding on to take the Gold Cup. But the woman finishing just behind him had earlier won her 6th race, making her the most successful jockey of the festival. A barrier-demolishing feat she just wishes her parents back in Tipperary had been able to witness in person.
They're getting a great kick out of it, so it's brilliant. I know they'd love to have been here today, like a lot of people, but I'm just happy I'm here anyway, and these horses are here.
So Frodon out in the lead, and now
with another female jockey, Bryony Frost, on Frodon, leading for most of the race, it was another great day for gender equality, which pleased but didn't surprise a woman who knows all about glass ceiling smashing. Gold Cup winning trainer Henrietta Knight.
Rachel Blackmore just stood out. But if you get a good female in the horse world, they're every bit as good as the men, if not better.
And she's confident there's much more to come.
When a female wins what they call the National Hunt, the Jumping Jockeys Championship, which Rachel Blackmore could easily do in Ireland this year, that will make history.
She believes the day has now arrived where in this sport men and women compete as equals, and that soon the headlines will focus on the ability, not the sex, of those winning the big races. Paul Davis, News at 10, Oxfordshire.
From making history to lessons from the past. As lockdown ends, many of us will be sprucing up our homes, ready to welcome back visitors this summer. Few, though, are likely to have tried scrubbing the floors with milk, but that's one Victorian-era technique being used at English heritage sites ahead of their reopening in May. Other tips include using a pony-haired brush for dusting and cleaning wallpaper with bread. Just watch out for crumbs.
Audley End was one of the most opulent mansions in England. And like many homes in Britain, inside, it's undergoing a deep clean during the lockdown.
The Victorians were obsessed with cleaning.
Since they've been closed, English Heritage has been trying out age-old methods to bring its buildings back to their best. One technique that's making a comeback is cleaning the flagstone floors with skimmed milk.
What you do is you wipe the milk on and then leave it to dry. You don't wash it off with water afterwards. It leaves a really nice soft sheen across the floor. It was something that would have been done by hand, and we're doing the same technique now on our hands and knees, doing each individual tile, not sloshing it on with a mop.
Does it smell when you finish the whole floor?
We haven't found that it smells. It's something that we would only do maybe once a year. I think if you were doing it weekly, it probably would smell.
The floors in this kitchen would have been especially dirty at the time that Avis Crocombe was head cook.
The copper should be bright and shiny.
She's the inspiration behind a new online series showing us all how to clean like our ancestors at home.
When you've got something you want to clean, if you're not happy with the product you're already buying, I think it's always good to look back into history to see what they used to use and try out new things.
The technique would be that you just dab the bread across the surface of the wallpaper very gently.
The Victorians even had an innovative method for cleaning dusty wallpaper.
We've been trying different types of bread, and we've found that white bread is the best. The other thing about the white bread is it's satisfying. It shows where you've taken the dust off and you can see it.
Today's housekeepers have to prioritise preservation over practicality, so they won't be using cut potatoes to clean these prized paintings. And with a few volunteers rather than many servants, they need 30 vacuum cleaners to keep on top of the dust. This household is busy preparing to open its doors again to visitors in the summer, but the spring clean should keep them busy until then. Stacey Foster, News at 10, Audley End in Essex.
Something to try if you're feeling brave. Finally tonight, watch out for one of our esteemed colleagues this weekend who was clearly feeling very brave when he signed up for this.
Luck be a lady tonight. Ha!
Yeah, that really is our political editor, Robert Peston, who swapped the drama of Westminster for the stage to sing on ITV's all-star musicals. Robert will be performing Luck Be a Lady from Guys and Dolls, and while you can see him singing, you won't be able to hear his final performance until Sunday night because they're all under wraps until the show on ITV at 6:30 on Sunday evening. We certainly cannot wait. That's all we've got time for tonight from me and all the team. Whatever you're doing, have a lovely weekend. Good night.